Just to an extent, and for a period of time I was living the dream.
Yeah.
And from a young age, playing cricket was all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional. I wanted to be the best batsman in the world.
Yeah.
That was my goal. And and I had a pretty decent career for a couple of years. But I think a large part of it is personality, and we can maybe get to that.
Yeah.
And a large part of it is priorities. As you get older, priorities in life change. As difficult as it is, if you told me at the age of 15 I would have stopped playing cricket at 25 as a full-on professional,
Yeah.
I would have told you there's more chances of the world ending.
Yeah.
But it also shows you how quickly life can change, how quickly priorities can change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with me. I had a few priority changes. I had a good reflection on my own life, and I had to make decisions at a younger age rather than a later age of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I'm a rather introverted personality. I'm not I don't enjoy traveling a lot. I'm not a big guy for tours, for going out, for hanging out. As I was getting a bit older, obviously as a youngster, it was quite fun. I think that's a large part of it because cricket is you do travel a lot, so that is one thing to bear in mind. I'm also a very energetic person and have a very active mind, and I found I really struggled with the fielding part of cricket. I found that I'd spend a lot of time in the cricket fields, an opening batter. You're only batting for a certain amount of time. You're in the change room for a large part of the time, and you're on the field for a large part of the time. And I felt that I was wasting a bit of my time and a little bit of my energy, and my mind was kind of wasting away. As crazy as this sounds, that I did feel that for a large part of my career, especially the fielding side of things. I got married at a young age, 23, which is quite young in today's standards. I've always been a very religious person, so my family and my faith has always come first in my life.
Yeah.
And I thought I could find a good balance between the two, and I still believe a lot of people can.
Yeah.
But when my wife fell pregnant with our first child, I think that was a big priority change for me. I got to know the national players quite well. Some of them are children. Some of them were away 300 days a year. A lot of traveling, a lot of sacrifice. So I think I reached a stage where I had to weigh up. If I want to be the best in the world, what do I have to sacrifice to get there? If I want to be an average cricketer, what do I have to sacrifice to be there, to get there? And where's it going to take me in 10 years' time? And this was kind of the balancing act that I had to play.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see myself being away 300 days a year.
Yeah.
I couldn't see myself being away 50 days a year.
Yeah.
I wanted to be there every single day.
Yeah.
And so that was a big thing. The other thing is stability. Becoming a father and having to, I wanted a stay-at-home mom to spend time with the family. Sport is an unstable career. You can get injured. You can lose your contract. You can get dropped for half the season.
Yeah.
There are a lot of uncontrollables. You can lose confidence. You can lose form. And I found that I wanted to create something a little bit more stable for myself at the age of 25, as opposed to hanging around in an unstable career and at a later stage having to make a decision and really going back to square one, if that makes sense, in the working world of things. If you want to be a great, Tiger Woods, they sacrifice everything, they really do. Sure, their family is there, a lot of them, and it is important to them, but there's too great a sacrifice. You've got to be very, very, very focused on your career, and you have to come first.
Yeah.
I think the seed was first planted. I would have been 22 years old. I was playing for South Africa A in Kimberley. And to be fair, I was out of form. I should not even be playing for South African A side. I don't know how I was picked. I was playing in the 4-day game, which is never a strength of mine. I should have been playing in the 1-day game in the Pro 20s.
Yeah.
I batted number 6 or number 7 for some reason, and I think I would bowled third ball by a spinner.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really enjoying it. And I walked into the change room and I sat there, and I'm quite a positive person, but I just looked at my whole situation and this career of cricket, which I was starting to taste in quite a big way, starting to represent more national teams, playing against some of the better players in the world. And I sat in the change room and I thought, is this something I want to do for the next 10 years, 12 years, 15 years? And my answer was no.
Yeah.
It was quite simple. It was not what I wanted to do for the next 15 years. And I sent a message to, can't remember, it was probably my then fiance or my mom, and I just said, I can't see myself doing this for the next 13 years as a career.
Yeah.
And I think my mom said, I just moved to the Titans, and I think my mom gave the advice, finish out your 2 years, and or 3 years, whatever it was, finish it out, give it everything, and then make a more educated decision, which is
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I did. I gave it everything I could. I didn't enjoy cricket as much as what I wanted to during that time, and therefore at the end of the period I knew it was time. So there was an occasion where I knew this was it. Probably one of the toughest periods of my life. You know, if you think, I've had a lot of support over the years. You know, I've had family support, I've had financial support, I've had fantastic sponsors, I've had coaches that have put a lot of faith in me. You know, I'd represented South Africa at numerous levels, and I felt South Africa had invested money into me, and so I did. I felt a lot of pressure from that side, but I think it reached a point where I knew. You know, as they say, you wake up and you just know it's not what you want to do. You know, playing cricket was the last thing I wanted to do that day. I could have thought of 50 different things I'd rather do before playing cricket.
Yeah.
And I think when that started happening quite regularly in my career, I knew it was the time to stop.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I had to be a little bit selfish, to be honest. I had to decide what is best for me. I could keep playing cricket to make other people happy.
Yeah.
And actually, surprisingly, in fact, everyone I spoke to was very supportive. You know, including my parents, including my wife, sponsors. You know, my unions. That, you know, I was going to be recontracted by the Titans, so that obviously already put plans in place.
Yeah.
And you know, they were supportive, but I think I was very honest about it, which helped.
Yeah.
I didn't beat around the bush. I wasn't trying to get to another union, trying to make more money. My decision was this, and these were the reasons.
Yeah.
And I don't want to seem ungrateful, because, you know, I hope I don't come across ungrateful, because I know I had a few people say to me, "But you've been given this talent," you know, and again I had to weigh up. You know, sure, it's a God-given talent. I believe that, and I did have a talent, but, you know, I'm still a person able to make my own decisions in life. And if my priorities are different to what my talent is in sport, then surely I have the ability to make that decision.
Yeah.
So I was not ungrateful at all.
Yeah.
And I hope I don't come across as that. I loved batting, but I didn't enjoy everything that came with being a professional cricketer. And I explain this to people. If I look at the whole of a professional cricketer, batting is probably 5% of it.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of it is travelling, it's training, it's events, it's fielding, it's sitting in the change room, it's politics, it's selection, you know. So if I looked at my love factor for the game, for batting was fantastic, but for the whole game, sadly, because batting was such a small part of it, you know, it wasn't enough. So I remember Jimmy Cook, when I was at the academy, I was probably about 17 or 18 years old. He said that we have to love to learn fielding. He said, if you don't love fielding, it's going to be a long career for you.
Yeah.
And I remember that sitting with me, because I've never been a big fan of fielding. I was always a decent fielder. I caught one in the slips, but I somehow felt I couldn't get my mind around standing in the field for a whole day when I feel I could have been doing, you know, something else, something maybe a bit more productive, something using my mind a bit more. Cricket is a boring game. You know, it is. A large part of it is dead time. It's dead space. You know, I think it's quite exciting for certain parts of it. For a captain, I think it's a lot more stimulating.
Yeah.
As a whole, if you don't understand, and this is coming from someone who understands cricket, as a whole, from someone who doesn't understand cricket, a lot of people say it's boring.
Yeah.
So I think that's why you have to love fielding. You have to enjoy travelling. You have to enjoy the whole part of cricket. And also, what made cricket difficult for me too, talking about personality, is I don't like to fail very much, and I'm very competitive. And if you look at success rates of an opening batter, or any batsman for that standard, you have a very high failure rate. And I also struggle to get my mind around it. Maybe I wasn't mentally strong enough for that. You know, but in my daily life, I found that if I make decisions, often if it doesn't go right, it's because of my decision or my action. Whereas in cricket, there are a lot of uncontrollables and a high failure rate, and I really struggle to get my mind around that. I think as I expected to go out and score 100 every game. And if I didn't, I felt like I'd failed, or 50, or whatever the case is. And I couldn't get my head around how I go out there, I try my best, I expect something, and a bad decision or a great catch or a, you know, or whatever can actually control that. I feel also there are a lot of uncontrollables, and again, I think that's personality. I like to be in control of things. I like to know that my decision creates a consequence, which happens a lot in cricket, but there are a lot of times, like selection, bad decisions, you know, great catches, whatever the case is, good balls, unplayable deliveries. You know, I personally struggle to deal with that. And you can't. You cannot struggle to deal with that if you want to be a professional cricketer, full stop. I think it's different to football or different to golf, whatever, because you controlling 95% of your decision making of your results. But cricket is slightly different when it comes to that. In fact, the best advice I ever heard was Graham Smith's mom saying to Graham Smith, and I can't remember the numbers exactly, so just bear with me. Obviously, it's different to every person. She basically gave him a time limit and said, right, you're 18, you moved to Western Province. She said, by the age of, make it 22 or 23, if you're not playing for South Africa, you need to make a decision. That decision doesn't mean you have to quit cricket, but that decision must be, what are you going to do with your life? Because at the age of 23 to 25, if you are not a top franchise player knocking on the door for South Africa, you know, realistically, your chances of making it are quite slim. Not impossible, but quite slim.
Less and less.
Less and less and less. So I think for a youngster, give yourself a time limit. You know, if you've got financial support from home, great. Make it 22 or 23 years old. Say, I will give cricket everything. It will be my life. I will do it. I will practice harder than every single person. I will give it everything. It will be my focus. If at the age of 22 or 23, you're not where you want to be, according to your goals, you know, right, okay, I'm not on the right track. You have to really give yourself a proper reality check, which isn't nice. It's not nice to maybe sit down and accept, okay, I'm not where I should be. What are the reasons? And then really start looking at other opportunities, you know, studying, looking to work part-time. Not saying you have to quit cricket, but you need to look after you. You know, you can't hang around to the age of 30, you know, playing a little bit in South Africa, a little bit in England, and trying to make a career, because, you know, you're going to get found out. Life has not just been a breeze since I stopped playing cricket. I took a massive pay cut. I joined a small family business. I've tried numerous different things. Things are definitely a lot better now than what it would be if I was playing cricket. But cricket makes you mentally tough. You know, it does. It helps you deal with failure a lot better than what the normal world will. It's very competitive. So my nature now is very competitive. If I do something, I do it 100%. I've got a good work ethic, you know, and I think cricket can teach you that. If you want to be successful, you have to work hard and work harder than the person next to you. I have a lot of confidence, because as a cricketer you meet a lot of people, you have to deal with functions, you've got to play in front of 20,000 people on television viewed by 1 million people, so you have to have confidence in yourself. So I back myself in a lot of situations where, as I probably wouldn't have if I didn't play cricket. So, you know, sport's fantastic. It teaches you a lot of life lessons. You know, some people use that. In fact, I know a lot of people who had average sporting careers and who have become very successful outside of sport. And I think sport's been a big part of that. I was very intense when I played cricket. And from a young age, I ate, I drank, I slept it. And I don't want to contradict myself here, but I think there's a time where you have to learn to let go. And I got to know some of the better players in the world, A.B. de Villiers, Dale Steyn, Morne Morkels. And when it came to the playing side of things, the guys were very relaxed. They went out and just did their thing. They trusted in their ability, they put in the hard work, but when it went to playing the game, they really just went out, played and enjoyed it. They weren't too technical, they didn't analyze things too much, they didn't think of all the different consequences. And again, I think this is a personality type, it's something that can be trained. But I think there's a stage where you have to learn to just relax and just go out and play. So I think that's one good lesson. And the other one is, you know, I thought I worked hard as a cricketer, which I did to an extent, but you always look back and think you could have worked harder. And I think the formula is quite simple. If you work harder than anyone in the world, you're going to reach a higher level than anybody else in the world according to your ability. It's quite simple. So, and I've seen the same in the working world. If I put in X amount of good working intelligent hours, it will create better results than if I didn't. Quite simple. So I think those two pieces of advice would, and I saw that from some of the better players in the world.